everybody. Thank you so much for asking me to do this. It's an enormous privilege, and absolutely tremendous. You could have asked any of hundreds of authors who, through thousands of bookshops, sell millions of books with PR machines behind them. But I'm a middle-aged man from the middle of England, and I just am lucky enough to have a platform for my enthusiasm. But that's why I'm so enthusiastic about libraries. I write because I'm curious. On description. I thought that phrase through, I must be said. But in about 5 years ago, the editor of the FT Health and Home, I'm not pushing subscriptions today, I'll insist on that, said to me, look, I've got a slot for 6 articles on a particular theme. Can you think of something you'd like to write on? And I'm absolutely fascinated by people who make things. I'm in awe of anyone who can turn base materials into things of beauty, virtue, and utility. And it happens that there's a piece in today that I wrote on paintbrushes, how to make very fine artistic brushes. There it is. The headline is Strong and Sable. It's the best part of the article. And I didn't even write that. So that was about 3 or 4 years ago. She said, have you got 6 articles for me? That one was number 78. And I keep writing them because people are fascinated. But that is what Halifax is all about. It is a town whose motto on its coat of arms talks of industry, talent, and foresight. And what I write about is industry, talent, and ideas, whether it's architecture, the talent of designers and builders, the industry of those who fitted stones together and carved them, and the foresight of those patrons who decided that their money is best placed in things that will stand the test of time. The way we so often build today is called value engineering, and having to prove that something is commercially viable. A library is an absolute leap of faith, and it's a leap of faith in curiosity, and that's why I think it's such an astonishing project, this one. I want to talk to you very briefly about someone who struck me, someone I've never met, who happens to come from where I do. I come from Lincolnshire, but we used to look in this direction. My dad subscribed to the Dalesman magazine. It's not true that you have to have it in a brown paper envelope in Lincolnshire. It's not a competitive thing. I'm proud to be a yellow belly and all, but we used to look in this direction because there aren't many hills where we came from in sunny Market Hinckley. And so we would go on holiday either to York, where I was first exposed to museums, the Castle Museum and Kirkgate. Blew my mind as a 7-year-old and got me interested in history. One of the real switches for me. We used to go on holiday to the Dales, and when I met my present wife, the first thing I did was took her on a tour of Yorkshire. I kid you not. She's from Phoenix, Arizona. We've been married 14 years now. And her brother came over with his new girlfriend, and we thought, what should we do? Let's take them to Yorkshire, see if we can get 2 out of 2. And so we booked them in an oak-lined room with a mahogany bed in Calderdale. John's girlfriend proposed to him that night. Come on, Yorkshire! That was her foresight, I think, really. But the person who, the other person from Lincolnshire who has intrigued me lately is a man I never met. He was born in 1949. His name was Rod Temperton. Anybody heard of Rod Temperton? He worked in a fish factory in Grimsby, but he's touched all of your lives because he was really interested in music rather than fish processing. And he formed a band called, in the heady days of disco in the 70s, called Chicago Heatwave, and got someone to knock up some lycra outfits. Must have been deeply uncomfortable, but he was a keyboard player and a lyricist, and they didn't do so well. So they reformulated, dropped the Chicago bit, they became Heatwave, and he wrote Boogie Nights. And that was picked up in Los Angeles by a producer called Quincy Jones, who said, I like what you did, can you come and work with me? I'm working on an album. So Rod Temperton from Cleethorpes, latterly in Grimsby, went to Los Angeles and worked on Michael Jackson's Off the Wall. And he wrote the title track, and Rock With You. Now, when our first daughter was born, the reason I got interested in Rod Temperton is because when we brought our first baby back from hospital in a cab, the cabbie had the radio on. And there was Rock With You, which seemed absolutely appropriate. And I thought, who wrote that? And I looked it up, and it's this guy from Cleethorpes. But he didn't stop there. Quincy Jones said, we've got another album, can you kind of think of the title track? And it was in a hotel where Thriller occurred to him. And he only wrote the title track of the greatest selling album of all time. Now you're going to expect me to say it's all because he walked into a library in Cleethorpes. This is my point. It wasn't. It's because his parents scrimped and saved and sent him to a private school where he had a headmaster who was particularly interested in music and thought, Rod's got a talent. I'll introduce him to some of the structure of classical music because I think that he can kind of learn the ground rules of music. And that is how the switch went on in his mind. Is that someone spotted the talent. Well, if you can pay for that kind of education, that's one thing. Most of us can't. I went to a comprehensive school, and my story is rather different than Rod Temperton. I used to walk to school, 1.5 miles every day. On the way back, past the fish and chip shop. I still have trouble walking past the fish and chip shop. But just opposite was the library. And it was an old Georgian house in Market Deeping, turned into a library. And in there, on the way back from school, there were books on things that I was interested in that school would never touch, things like coins. I used to find coins in the fields around there. Found a Roman coin once, and then a 17th century one. But why are they so similar? And it's through popping into that library and picking up books on the thing I was interested in that's what set down the structure of British history in my mind, is learning about coins from the books I could get in this library. And then it extended to architecture, and a career was made for it. So I owe my interest in whatever I write in the MP is because of the interest that I got from our library. We have a proud history of libraries in this country. The Public Libraries Act of 1850 gave boroughs the power to create these resources for people. You have philanthropists, people like Andrew Carnegie from Dunfermline, who went to the States, the great metal worker, very much in the mould of those fathers of Halifax, whose industry and talent and foresight made this city. And Carnegie's money went into 1,689 public libraries. I mean, what an astonishing achievement of a civilized society to create those kind of resources. His motto in his libraries was, let there be light. But libraries have changed, of course. The British Museum, another huge investment, is not just a place, it's not really a lending library, it's not just a place full of books. It has a sound library, a business centre, a place of exhibitions. Libraries have changed today. The world of technology has shifted our focus, hasn't it? Although books remain a perfect form of technology, I think. Find a child that doesn't enjoy leaping through a book before bedtime. We have very many ways of having those switches put on in our minds, but there's been a challenge. Last year, it was very hard to get up-to-date information, but 343 libraries have closed in the previous 5 years. 207 of those in buildings, the rest mobile libraries. Last January, I was back at the library in Market Deeping where I passed by as a kid, in which I owe a lot, because that had been threatened with closure. It only survived because volunteers stepped in and turned it into a community resource. That's the only other library I've opened, and it's the one that I used as a kid. This is almost the other end of the spectrum. This isn't a rescue, this is an absolutely triumphal piece of civic foresight and industry and investment. Not only in a new library building against all the odds, but in refurbishing a building that blew my socks off when I saw it 15 years ago for the first time, the Peace Hall. How many cities are there and towns that talk about having a cultural heritage and learning quarter and investing in learning? That's why it's such a great honour for me. This is an exceptional act of foresight on behalf of the Council, all of the partners that are brought together, as a former chief executive of an historic buildings charity called the World Monuments Fund, British branch, who knows how hard it is to win hearts and minds and to align everybody in a mission. I know the perils of mentioning one or two people and not all of the others, because it's hundreds. So suffice to say that this temple of serendipity, which is a tribute to the values on which this town was founded, is my great pleasure and honour to launch. And do I just pull this tag? Other end, is it? You see, I haven't had much training, which is why you've got to stay curious through life. There's always more to learn, isn't there? Good, up the top. Oh, there it is. Full of small ones, yeah, well, I see a Financial Times piece on the making of